Welcome to What the Tech. Today's guest is a founder on a mission to help businesses worldwide better communicate and represent their actual value. He's created a dynamic ROI tool that makes it really easy for businesses to show their customers their impact on the bottom line while helping them double or even triple their closing ratios. Now, by using this tool, frontline salespeople can co-author proposals that can easily be adjusted by working together with their clients to evaluate the true financial impact of a new product or service. This is actually helping decision makers justify and articulate the value for less transactional investments like software or consulting solutions. All of this without the pain of Excel spreadsheets or painful formulas. So if you like a good ROI and you hate spreadsheets, stick around to hear this tech founder tell his story. All right. I'm super pumped to have Michael Farber on the show today. He's an expert in enterprise software and technology sales, and he has a wealth of experience in solution selling and really delivering exceptional revenue results. Now, for the last 10 years, he's actually been developing a technology platform that creates an interactive value selling experience for salespeople. Now, this platform enables those same salespeople to collaborate with their prospects and really build a financial business case as you've never seen before. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more from Michael about his work in this area, and I'm sure our listeners today will find his insights to be incredibly valuable. So I want to thank you so much for joining me today, Michael.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Troy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome, man. I've been pumped about this conversation because who doesn't want to, present an ROI that is compelling and powerful and co-authored with their clients, right?
Yeah, I mean, ROI has really been done so poorly for so long that, when you hear ROI, it puts a pit in your stomach. You're thinking about that Excel spreadsheet, the 10 tabs across the bottom. It's error prone. It's ugly. Nobody really understands it. Salespeople's minds don't work like Excel. That's a value engineer. That's somebody else. It's not how salespeople talk and think, but yet they're forced to use an Excel spreadsheet to try to build value. And I don't know one case in the history of my selling that an Excel spreadsheet was adopted and widely used. Yet companies buy for two reasons. You're going to help them make money or you're going to help them save money. Yet salespeople don't have the ability to have that conversation. And it was really mind-blowing to me. And so I decided to quit everything and build a sales tool by a rep for a rep so they can actually have a financial conversation that they're comfortable with having.
I'm loving that. And when we're going to dig into that, but I actually wanted to ask, some questions around these videos that you're putting out first, because they just intrigue me and they're well produced and you're fantastic on it. And I know when I personally got into starting to do these podcasts and just kind of putting myself in front of camera, and I've been in, keynote speakers. I've stood in front of hundreds or thousands of people and spoke, and putting myself in front of a video was much more challenging in my mind than anything else. So I wanted to ask, where did you start with the idea of maybe doing this, like kind of branching out and trying it? And where did you come up with some of the skits? And honestly, what have been some of the results you've gotten from the videos?
So I have to give props out to Alex B. Sheridan. If you're not following him, Troy, please, have you followed him at all?
I actually was looking into it for this video because he's got some pretty interesting videos as well.
Yes, no, he is fantastic. He's like my mentor, and we're connected, and I pay for his service, and he helps me, but he was my inspiration because, I live on LinkedIn, but every time one of his videos came up, I stopped, I watched it, I enjoyed it, I commented on it. And it seemed like, and I sell to people like I get sold to. So if it caught my attention, I'm like, all right, this is going to catch other people's attention. So he's really the driver behind that, because before that I was never really on LinkedIn besides sending out emails and things like that. But no, I get a lot more comments. We call them edutainment videos. So it's not just entertaining, but it's also educating. So, if you want to be a disruptor, LinkedIn's a lot about the same type of stuff, posting a picture or a rant or, a company blog or this. You have to be a disruptor, and there's not too many of them out there. So you get out what you put in. So it does take time. I'll tell you, the same goes for me. Putting myself in front of a camera was very, very difficult.
Right?
I mean, I couldn't even say a sentence. It was amazing how I couldn't even complete a sentence when the camera was focused on me. So I've gotten better at it. Like anything, you get better at it. But also what's nice with the skits where I play multiple characters is I don't have to directly look at the camera. So that means I could look a little off screen and I could have my script notes there.
Yes.
So when I'm looking right at the camera, when I look away, it messes everything up. But the fact that I can do multiple characters and view off to the side like I'm talking to them allows me to read the script easier.
That's awesome. Well, I think anybody who's seriously considering video not only probably needs a little prompting to do it, but also to know that, like, hey, even the people that look like they're putting out some good stuff, and they are. I mean, your videos are incredibly entertaining. I've watched, I don't know, at least 10 of them at this point, and I thought, look, you actually look like a pro. So, whatever format you have is really working for you. But yeah, it's difficult. I had a friend of mine, this is over 2 years ago, tell me, you need to be doing this. You need to be doing, and I started off with this podcast, and even that was outside of my realm of comfort because it's a different medium. I just wasn't used to it. Even with all the Zoom meetings and all the things, it's still different, right? So I applaud you for getting out there and getting out of your comfort zone, Michael.
I appreciate it, and it's a much easier and warm reach out when you're hitting your target audience. They like or they comment. Now you make a connection, and then you could reach out to them, offer them something free. Hey, I'd love to. I see you're involved in this, can I give you a piece of advice? Or I see you post on LinkedIn. Can I offer, if you give something, it's so much easier to ask for a few minutes of their time than just the emails people are getting bombarded with today.
Yeah. Those are becoming less and less effective for sure. So before we dig into, the conversation, I wanted to have a little bit of fun with you today. I hope you don't mind. I'd previously done this in other shows, but I had veered away from it. Not for any particular reason, but I figured, with some of the skits that you've done and kind of your sense of humor, I think we could have fun with a few quirky questions. Are you game?
Absolutely.
All right, great. So I stole a couple of these from Jimmy Kimmel because I thought they were hilarious. Two of them were with Aquafina, who we all know she's just like stupid funny. And so the first one I thought was really funny. He says, "Do you think you'll ever go into a sewer?" And hopefully, for you, that hasn't been the case. But I am curious. Do you think you'll ever go into a sewer? A sewer? Why not? Right?
I do not think so. No, absolutely
like
not.
40%, 50% chance?
My Shawshank Redemption days.
So would you say there's less than a 50% chance that ever happens?
Absolutely. Now, when I was a kid, I used to crawl into drain pipes a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Because we would play stickball and the ball would go, it was a hill, and the ball would roll down and go into that big, and I was always one of the smaller kids, so I would have to creep and elbow crawl through spiders and stuff to get this magical tennis ball that we couldn't do without, but that's probably the closest I would go.
I would argue that's pretty close to a sewer. I mean, you're like half Ninja Turtle at this point. Okay, next question. So what in your life do you sniff the most?
Oh God, what in my life do I sniff the most? That is a good question. I think candles.
Candles? Okay.
My wife likes to make some candles around Christmas, and she gets the oil, so I am sniffing a lot of candles, I guess. That's probably
that
it.
Reminds me
and
of
my dog's breath. This is a weird one. Yeah, my dog's breath. I do brush her teeth. So those are the two things.
Dog's breath isn't so bad when it's like when they're younger, but it gets pretty stank by the time they get a little bit older. So, there's something to be said about like puppy breath. Puppy breath's not so bad. Yeah. Well, that's good. All right, candles. I like that one. I can dig that one. All right, last question for you. So when was the last time you spoke to a telemarketer? And be honest, when you realized it, did you hang up on them?
No, I've never hung up on a telemarketer. I'll listen to usually I don't pick up any number that I don't
right,
know.
Same.
But if I do and I get them, I will listen to them 9 out of 10 times, or almost 10 out of 10. I'm not buying,
right.
But I know they're trying to do a job. I mean, I was a BDR at some point, and it was always gut wrenching to me. I almost wanted to get the voicemail rather than get a live person. I was like, come on, voicemail. Yes, I make my dials. That's perfect. I was always nervous about it. So I understand they're trying to do a job that, they could be out robbing people, yeah. At least they're trying to do something. But if they're good, I actually comment and say, hey, I think you did a good job. I like this. I like that. If they're bad, I also make a comment. And let them know what I think they can do better, but I'll never hang up on one unless they're obnoxiously rude.
Right. Or they don't speak English very well. That's always tough with me when somebody's calling me about Medicare. First of all, I'm not eligible for Medicare. Second of all, like if I can't understand you, it's a little bit annoying. But hey, keep trying. Maybe somebody's out there for you. Hey, thanks for answering those questions. I thought that would be a lot of fun. Now for the real fun part, your story is incredible. I think that there's so many people out there that, have been in sales, selling solutions and have been challenged with all the same things that you and I have been challenged with across our sales careers and representing the value and how do you, show the return on investment on that. And how do you collaborate with that coach or, that decision maker to make sure that it's meeting all of their expectations as much as you want it to, right? And so I'm curious, why in your mind did you start your company initially, and why do you feel like you could actually step out of what you were doing and make a run at it?
So it was funny. I was actually forced to use an ROI calculator when I sold for Concur Technology.
Okay.
I was working a pretty big account, Bacardi USA, out in Miami. I was a national rep, so I wasn't. I was in the middle market. I wasn't an enterprise rep, but Bacardi was a big account, and through some loopholes, it fell to me.
Okay.
So I was working with the controller. His name was Warren. He goes, Mike, I tell you, we want to move forward with your solution, but we're going to need a business case. And I'm like, all right, Warren, I know we have one of those. I remember Concur rolled it out at SKO. Wasn't the smartest day they decided to roll it out. They rolled it out the second day at SKO at 8 a.m, and everybody knows the very first night, everybody's down at the bar. They're drinking way too much, hanging out with friends. Some executive put their card up at the bar, so everything's free. So anyway, 8 a.m, they start opening up this Excel spreadsheet with 10 tabs across the bottom, like I explained, and put everybody to sleep. And that was the last I paid attention to it till I had to build one. I reached out to everybody on the team. I'm like, who has that Excel spreadsheet from SKO? It probably took a day before I even could get my hands on it. Then I spent about 3 or 4 days just trying to go through it so I didn't look like an idiot when I sat down in front of Warren, and it was complex, but I knew enough about it to muddle through it. So I sat down with Warren. We went through it together. It wasn't smooth, but we were both figuring out how this number was calculated, and it was really collaborative. And then at the end, he goes, Mike, I got to tell you, this is one of the better tools I've seen. So I'm like, all right, cool. We ended up winning that deal, but I started thinking, I'm like, all right, maybe I have a competitive advantage here. So I didn't enjoy the process, but if I have a leg up on something, I'm going to try to utilize it. So the next 4 deals, I used the tool in every sales process, and I started getting really good at it, and it completely changed the way I sold. I knew who was going to buy, who wasn't going to buy, if I had a strong champion, if they'd be willing to fight. My forecasting improved, and through my own personal experience, it completely changed the way I sold. So probably about a year after that, I left Concur. That's when LinkedIn started getting big and I started getting hit up by recruiters.
Right.
I'm like, all right. So I left LinkedIn and went to a company called Exactly Corporation. I was now a big enterprise rep. And I had a big territory. As soon as I got hired, I reached out to the other 6 enterprise reps. I said, hey, who has an ROI calculator? 3 of them responded back. They were all different. They were all terrible. And I had a pit in my stomach. So I'm like, oh my God, this is the way I sell. So I went to Steve DeMarco, who was the VP of sales. I didn't want to just start creating my own sales tools. I was there for 2 weeks. I go, Steve, this is something we used at Concur. I have a friend who's a wizard in Excel. Could I have him build something for us? And he goes, yeah, how much? He was going to do it for free. But I got my friend $3,000 to build this Excel spreadsheet. And it got me thinking God, at that point, this was my 5th company I worked with. I've been in sales for 15 years now. Only 2 or 3 of them provided us with an Excel spreadsheet, which were all crummy except for Concur. The other provided absolutely nothing. And I just realized, and these were companies making, 60 million in ARR, over 100 million in ARR. I'm like, wow, there is a huge void in the marketplace. So that's really where I started thinking about the ROI business. I ended up getting fired from Exactly, and I'll tell you that story after. And it really left a sour taste in my mouth, but that led me to, starting my own company. So that long story short, it's just from my own forced usage of the tool, and then realize there's a better mousetrap that could be made.
So how long did it take you to actually have a working product? Once you actually, because I assume, did you start with it, like building it off of like an Excel sheet, or did you just to kind of perfect some of the strategies and the formulas, and then you transition to a SaaS based product?
I was very lucky to get laughed out of the room on my very first meeting. It was going to be Excel-based spreadsheets. And it was funny. I thought, okay, this is a good model. I mean, companies gave me an Excel spreadsheet, but they were terrible. Concur actually built a decent one. So companies can't even do Excel right. And my idea was that I pitched to my friend. I'm like, let me go out. I'll sell these Excel-based models. I'll get $3,000 to $5,000 a pop, and that's good. It would have been a horrible plan for a business, because God, in order to make a living, I'm going to have to sell a ton of these, and it's one and done. Yeah. But my very first meeting, it was 2012 around Christmas time. So it was a lull here, and I drummed up some business. I'm like, hey, I'm local to Atlanta. I know, can I come in? Let me show you something. I don't know if you have a lot of meetings, at this point. So my very first company I walked into, I gave a presentation, talked about the importance of ROI, and then I pulled up a couple Excel spreadsheets, and they're like, we could build this in Excel. Why do we need you to build it in Excel? And it was a very uncomfortable meeting. I didn't have a really good answer for them, and I literally got laughed out of the room. So on my way to my car in the parking lot, I called my friend who was going, wizard in Excel. I go, man, you need to learn how to program. I go, we need to take this online. So, and he was a self-taught programmer and was on YouTube and looking, and he ended up, in about 4 or 5 months later, we had something I could actually present that was an online working calculator.
Wow. That's cool, man. That is like, in my mind, somebody going from, hey, like I built this thing on Excel, to learning how to code, and the sales guy getting laughed out of his first, conversation. That's perfect. Like, honestly, that's like the perfect like beginning, right? Because you realize how far you are, but you're willing to put the work in to make it happen. Both of you, I think, right? To make it happen. That's great. So, like, if you were starting all over today, like, would you change anything about that? Anything you would do differently?
No, I think you need to skin your knees in order to get to the next level.
Absolutely.
You got to keep falling forward. You learn more from a mistake. So it was good. If it was just my idea, Jacob, I think you need to learn programming. Why? We haven't even given Excel a try. I think you need to fall forward.
Well, I think it's a great way to start. So let's talk more about your company. Let's talk about, some of the things that have gone really well and maybe some of the challenges that you've had along the way. And then what are you specifically innovating? Because there are other ROI type, companies out there. What are you doing differently?
I think the biggest difference is this company was born by a salesperson for a salesperson. A lot of the other, and there's not too many vendors out there, but they're all value engineers.
Right.
These are folks that don't think like salespeople, that haven't been in the trenches or dealing with champions and arming them. And I always tell my prospects, you're not building this calculator for your salespeople. You're building it for your champion. They are the ones that have to take it, go to the CEO or the other stakeholders and explain it. So I think, and I'm not talking about all value engineers, but I think a lot of the other competitors out there they take a sledgehammer to a thumbtack. I know the best salespeople are storytellers. Mm-hmm. I think you could agree with that, Troy. I think I've even read that on some of the things that you've written. I'm not trying to build a P&L statement with our ROI calculator. I am trying to sit down, Troy, with my champion, give them a value story saying, hey, we can save you X amount of hours. This is a half a FTE. With that half a FTE, you could accomplish this type of stuff. I want to make my champion a financial storyteller, not something where they're getting it down to the exact penny. And I think that's probably the biggest fundamental difference between us and the competition out there.
Yeah, because your clients have the ability to basically co-author these strategies with their clients, right? With their ideal prospect, and so they're tweaking things up and down. They're basically trying to get on the same page of what the potential value could be from a time saving standpoint, from a fixed dollar amount standpoint. They're really going through all these things. So are there specific parameters when you look at bringing on a new customer, you're like, here are the 8 things that we need to look at from an ROI standpoint? I don't know. So I guess I'm asking, is there some sort of formula that you put around it that has made it so impactful?
It's a very collaborative effort because everybody's selling something different. So one company might increase revenue, increase productivity, and reduce errors.
Right.
Another company, might be around security and breach and that. So the value prop is very different for each company. What I do try to focus on is say, hey, pick your 3 or 4 biggest value areas. Don't try to boil the ocean. Companies buy for 2 reasons, or 2 or 3 reasons, not for 8 or 9. So what is your low-hanging fruit? What do most of your prospects gravitate to? And let's get really good and focus on those areas of the ROI. Then we can add more. Because it also matters when you roll it out. If you roll it out, like I mentioned, those Excel spreadsheets, with 10 tabs across the bottom, really only 3 were relevant. I went to those 3 all the time. So you're better off just rolling out 3. And then get your reps feedback on what else you should add. Because your reps are better off doing 3 things great than 8 things okay. So I think it's just the ability to simplify and dumb things down to 3 or 4 areas rather than 8 or 10. So I don't know if that answered the question, but
it did. So when you implemented this sort of strategy back at Concur, right? What were some of the immediate, using that kind of antiquated, technology, what were some of the immediate things that you noticed in your sales process that were impacted in a positive way?
One is I realized, all right, let's just say I'm working a deal that's $45,000 or $50,000. That was about an average size deal I would work. If I asked my champion for 20 minutes to go through this exercise and they kept pushing me off or no, they weren't serious. I mean, if you're not going to spend 15 minutes, you're not going to spend 50,000.
Right.
So it allowed me to close deals out quicker, not keep them in my pipeline, focus on other activities. If we were able to fill it out, and let's face it, prospects don't know the answers to a lot of these questions. So we would fill out basic information, but if they had to go back and find research or do a little bit of research, if they didn't put in the energy to do the research, I knew they weren't serious about buying. The prospects that sat down, enjoyed the exercise, didn't know this answer, but got back to me a day later saying, Mike, this is the answer to that. There was an interest.
Right.
I mean, think about anything. Think about a relationship or when you want to buy something. You put in energy. You know, you research, you look online, you watch YouTube videos. I mean, what is the behavior you would do if you want to buy something? And then it's a really good barometer to see, are they giving you that interest back? If not, they're probably not going to buy. So it's like playing poker. You can really see the cards they have in their hands.
That's a great point. How much, time do, salespeople spend on things that are never going to happen because they don't have a barometer for what it should look like? Because I was watching I think it was one of your videos, and, it was like, you were asking for stuff or something like that. And it was just like, it was a conversation between you and somebody else. It was you.
Door-to-door.
Yeah, it was the door-to-door lawnmower. Yeah, that's who it was. Yeah, that's who it was. And you kind of walked through it, two different versions of it, and how impactful the conversation was when you started to give some estimations on the potential cost, and how you articulated that in a conversation, and then you add the tool, a visual tool to it, like you do with the ROI calculator. How powerful that really can be, because, a lot of times people don't think the way that they're doing things or what they're considering doing, how much more expensive it is than having, an expert handle it in a more efficient manner. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Most salespeople think prospects know their numbers, and they're thinking about that, but they are not.
Right.
They have no idea. It's funny when I sit down, when I started the ROI shop, I thought, all right, I've been software sales. I know the language. I'm going to talk to CROs. I'm going to get them to sign up. I'm going to sit down. They're going to clearly explain their value prop, and we're going to build it. I was in for a very rude awakening that most sales leaders don't even know how to formulate the questions to get the value. And that was mind-blowing to me. And it opened up. I just thought I was a dumb salesperson because I would always hear, don't sell on feature functionality, sell on value, sell on value. And I'm like, God, what am I doing wrong here? I'm trying to sell on value. But when I sat down with several CROs, and I'm like, all right, what are your main value areas? They can say, oh, we could increase revenue. We could reduce employee turnover and increase productivity. Fine. All right, so how do you increase revenue? And they couldn't really formulate the questions on, how to calculate it. And it got me thinking, God, if the executives and VPs who live, breathe, and eat the solution 24/7 have a hard time explaining their value, how could you expect your salespeople to explain your value? And take that a step further, how could you then talk to your champion, spend maybe 2 hours with them, and let's face it, they're probably multitasking half the time. How do you expect them to go into their CEO's office and explain your value? You are clearly setting them up to fail. So I didn't realize how much education it was gonna take to build these things out.
So, but knowing and kind of having a bit of I guess a playbook at this point, it's probably, even your process is probably way more efficient, and not only explaining your value to a potential, prospect for yourself, your own business, but secondarily, you're probably able to speed up the process from, that first conversation to actually building out the ROI tool now, because of all those steps you've taken. So what are some of the things that I guess barriers for your success, like getting say a sales leader, it could be a chief revenue officer, vice president of sales, or something like that. What are some of the bigger hurdles you have in kind of articulating your value to them? Because maybe they're stuck in this old kind of way of doing things.
I mean, believe it or not, we have an ROI tool that proves the value of the ROI shop. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. So there's not a sales process that I go through that I do not build the business case with them.
Right.
Because it does two things. One, it shows how impactful the conversation could be. And they are on the other side of the table. They are receiving this numbers. They are going through this exercise. And then at the end of it, I say, hey, here, I'm giving this to you. You may have to socialize this internally. I know you might have to. You might have to obtain budget. I go, these are the same obstacles that your salespeople have to overcome. Do you want your salespeople having this conversation, arming them champion, and going to obtain budget? If you felt that you'd want your salespeople to do exactly what we did here today, and has this changed the conversation? Am I different? Is this a different sales process than you've experienced? Is this a disruptor? I go, if you feel that way, then perfect. I think we're a good fit. If you think you could do the same thing in Excel, or you don't think it's as impactful, then we're probably not a great fit for you. So it's great that they get to be on the other side of the table to see the impact, and we can quickly change their mind.
Yeah, and obviously, you're walking them through your process that eventually they'll be able to walk their clients through. So what does your ideal, prospect look like right now? Like who, name the things that they're struggling with, and I know we touched on a little bit of them, but, value selling, what is it? How do I do it? Right. But what does your ideal prospect look like? What are they dealing with?
Right now, our ideal prospect is in the B2B SaaS place. That's mostly because that's where I sold my whole life. So that's the low-hanging fruit. We have companies in manufacturing. Typically between 20 and 200 reps, I would say, is where most of our customers lie. Now, we have customers that have a lot more. We have customers that have 2 or 3 users, but we're trying to move a little bit more upstream because it takes just as much time to set up a 2-user sales force and a 50-user sales force. Right. And we're a small company, so resources are limited. The biggest thing that we solve, the challenges that we solve, are reducing the no decision outcome and reducing discount. Those are our 2 biggest value buckets that we solve. Now, we also talk about reducing onboarding time, and we have other value areas, reducing customer churn and things like that. But like I said, the 2 things I focus on, if they don't buy into, we could help them improve win rates and reduce discounting and reduce, they're not going to buy because of onboarding.
Yeah.
And most companies are losing 60 to 80% of their opportunities if they're being honest and they actually go through Salesforce and seeing how many deals are being pushed out quarter after quarter after quarter, or closed, lost, no decision. It's really 60 to 80%. That's huge. And the main reason is poor value articulation. Their prospect did not see enough value to move forward with the offering. So they made a decision. It's just you weren't valuable enough.
So let's talk brass tacks then. Like, what kind of results should somebody who implements this with you, what kind of results do you typically see? Like what, maybe even a client story or something that kind of supports that?
So we have 2 clients. We have clients that will mandate usage, and I don't mean mandate like you need to use this in every deal, because there's some deals you don't have to. Sales isn't cookie cutter.
Right.
But they should mandate you need to use this at least 3 times a quarter, or twice a month, or on every opportunity above this threshold, just to get the reps to start using.
Right.
Because once they start using it, they start seeing the results, they'll use it more and more. And then we have the other kind of customer that say, okay, here's another tool to put in your tool belt to use when you need. Those customers will fail. There'll be 3 to 5 reps that adopt it, and they will do really, really well. But if you don't believe in a culture of we need to mandate a sales tool like this, the adoption is going to be very low, because people hate change. It's a different way of selling. Reps aren't used to doing the numbers. It takes some training. So the companies that have adopted it, like our largest customer, we got a testimonial from him yesterday, one of the directors, and he said they're increasing their price. They've stopped discounting, that they've actually increased their price by 18% by utilizing the tool.
Wow.
So that's just huge.
Wow. What industry are they in? I'm just curious. You don't have to name names, but
they're in the HCM space. So
okay. Yeah. Human capital management.
They do,
cool.
Healthcare, payroll, things like that. It's a pretty good sized customer.
Cool. Have you implemented anything like this for the consulting side of things? As you know, I'm in the insurance business, which is also the people business. And one of the biggest challenges I think we always have is, and you may already know this, but a lot of times we say, because they don't think there's anything different out there. A lot of times the prospect doesn't know, and they start off with saying how great of a guy or gal their broker is, right? And so naturally, it's it's pointing out the facts. The facts don't lie, and ROI calculator can help remove emotion from the equation. So I'm just curious if you're talking to somebody who's maybe not selling a software as a solution, maybe more of a service or things like that. Like, what are some of the approaches that you can take?
Well, we peel back the onion, and I don't know if you wanted to go back and forth here, but I would ask, all right, if you're, what services are you offering, and how does that service benefit them?
Right.
And just start, like, explain it to me, and this is what I always tell my new customers during implementation. Explain it to me like I'm in first grade. What does
That's helpful.
the environment look like without you?
Yeah.
Then once you embed your solution or yourself or your service within it, how does that help? And if you could explain that to me, I go back and I build the calculator. I stop leaving it up to the customer to say, okay, come up with the questions and send it back to me. It never happens. That's not how their mind works. That's my job.
Yeah.
I've realized that's my job. That's my expertise. So if you could explain a clear picture, I'll go back and build it. I'll show it to you. You'll love it. You'll hate it. Most likely you'll be in the middle. But now your gears are moving and you're like, ooh, that's a good idea. Can we go this direction? Now you explain a little bit more and I go back and make revisions. So it's a very back and forth collaborative approach and not cookie cutter.
Yeah, and I think it needs to be that way, but you're also taking the initiative, which I think is one of the hardest things for a client to do because they don't know where the gold is. They don't know, a lot of times where, what lever should I be pulling on here? And a lot of times that shows up in their sales process, right? Like I don't know where to focus my time because, I'm trying to present a lot of ideas. When really you should be focusing probably on the ones that create the biggest or largest impact. You mentioned like 2 to 3, right? That things that you want to focus on, and not the 8 things that are potentially out there, but the major impact items. So I love the fact that you're kind of taking the initiative to help the client identify those. I think it's important.
Yeah, so many clients they're just so trapped in their world that they can't see beyond the trees, and they'll build an ROI calculator using their marketing lingo, which, Sales OS.
Yeah, we love that.
You know what? Nobody else knows what the hell Sales OS is
right.
except for you. And this is what you're giving your champion. I'm like, no. What does it mean to them? So it's like a bad relationship. You make excuses to why things are bad and it will get better. But everybody on the outside is like, you need to get out of this relationship. So you get blinded by how involved you are with your own product and solution.
Yeah. Well, I always like to close the show with 3 do's and a don't, and I think if you're talking to maybe a potential client, what are 3 things that should be included in every ROI, and what's really something that shouldn't be, like maybe something that we're focusing on that we shouldn't be.
All right. 3 do's and don'ts. I'll give you a couple that are ROI related and just things that are just related to business. If you wanted to start a business or anything like that. Once again, in an ROI, you're not trying to get it down to the penny. Not trying to be exact and try to capture everything. You have to be able to tell a story. So don't make it so precise. You have to ask questions that your prospects could either answer or at least give an educated guess. Don't ask for like an exact number. They're not going to know it. They're going to have to go back and you've just kind of lost them. So that's ROI related. Know your ideal customer and where they live. Are they on LinkedIn? I know you said, you don't do a lot on TikTok nowadays, but, know where your customers live, and ask honest feedback from the customers you lose to. It was funny. So I told you the story how I got laughed out of the room, and we immediately left Excel and went to an online calculator. And that was huge. Thank God it was the first meeting. Otherwise, who knows? I could have wasted a year.
Right.
When we got it to the online calculator, I'm like, oh my God, this is so much better than Excel. We actually won a deal or two. And then, we had some no decisions, absolutely. But I got to thank this guy, Stuart Fox from Skybox, who I spoke to later. He goes, Mike, I followed up with him after we lost, and I go, he goes, you want to know why we didn't move forward? He goes, your UI looked a bit remedial. I was just thrilled we were away from Excel, but I needed to hear that. And then immediately, and thank God I heard that within the first year, and it didn't take 2 more years because I was not focusing at all on the UI. And immediately it was another one of those calls to Jacob. I said, Jacob, stop this new functionality. We got to make the product look better.
Poor Jacob.
He probably looks at his phone and like, oh no, what it is.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't for Stuart saying that, we would have been focusing more on back-end functionality. And, for every one prospect that tells you something, there's 50 prospects that thought it. So ask for feedback. That's definitely a do. And that's just for whatever business you're in, whoever you lose to, and you probably would be great at this. Obviously, you're a podcast host. You're great at asking questions. But, just ask for the honest feedback. Let them know why you're looking for it, and it will move your business forward. That's for sure. This is more about starting a business. Don't go into business with somebody that does the same thing that you do. There's going to be resentment. Somebody's going to work harder than the other. If you know what the other person's doing, you're always going to be like, God, why didn't he bring in more business this month? I brought in 3 deals, and it's going to be resentment. I had a business before, and 2 of us did the same thing, and it didn't work out well. It was great that Jacob was technology and knew programming. I knew nothing about it, and I knew sales. He didn't know anything about it, and I was never second-guessing what he was doing. He was never second-guessing what I was doing. So if you're going into business, I personally suggest you go into business with a partner who brings something completely different than what you do.
I've never heard that before, and I've read a lot of books, and I've listened to a lot of founders, and that is incredible advice. I really, that last one really hit for me. So and honestly, it's coming from real experience, right? Because it's there's always somebody that's going to be doing, and maybe it's naturally they're more talented, or they've got a different approach to them, but or they just work harder, or they have less family things going on. But if you kind of separate those 2 things and you say, hey, like this person has this skill set and they get to focus on that, and I don't know enough about it to be critical about it, but I know that they're efficient and they're doing a good job. And now you're not stack ranking yourself with your partner. How incredibly unproductive that could be, right?
Yeah. It will definitely go downhill fast, because resentment is something that you can't come back from.
That's right. So I want to thank you for coming on here, Michael. This was a really fun show, and I think you have an incredible story and a lot to share. I always like to give you an opportunity to tell people where can they find you if they wanted to chat with you, follow you, hire you, or even watch your awesome videos.
I'm posting mostly on LinkedIn. We do have a YouTube channel that I call the ROI Shop on YouTube, and I post all my videos there after they're on LinkedIn. Or just find me on LinkedIn, Michael Farber, or search for the ROI Shop. There's only a few of us, so you'll find. I love connecting with people, and so that's probably the best place. And then just drop me a DM or a note. I'm happy to talk with anybody.
Absolutely. And so if you like this video, make sure you boop the like button for my man, Michael. Hit the subscribe button as well if you want to be notified. And, hey, look, we're talking to founders. We're talking about real issues. We're talking about real solutions. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode of What the Tech, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.